Introduction to economic systems. An economic system is a system of production, resource allocation, and distribution of goods and services within a society or a given geographic area. It is a combination of institutions, agencies, entities, decision-making processes, and patterns of consumption that comprise the economic structure of a given community. But why create an economic system? Because human life depends on the consumption of certain things, goods and services, some of which, up to a level, are also essential, such as food, water, shelter, cloth, for survival. Challenges of economic system. 1. Production. Things need to be created. Note: for production, one needs to set up productive assets for which money needs to be spent, known as an investment. 2. Distribution. Getting the produced goods distributed or supplied to the needy people. Worldwide economic systems, policy reforms. Washington Consensus. 1. Aims to reform economic policies of developing countries that are facing economic crises. Like India was coerced into adopting the path of the Washington Consensus when it turned to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for support because its foreign exchange reserves had become precariously low. 2. Suggested by IMF, World Bank, U.S. Department of the Treasury, Finance Ministry. 3. Named as Washington Consensus by John Williamson, U.S. economist, since all the above institutions are based in Washington. Beijing Consensus. 1. The Beijing Consensus is the political and economic policies of the People's Republic of China, PRC, also known as the Chinese model of economic development. 2. The idea of Beijing Consensus was forwarded by Joshua Cooper Remo in 2004. 3. An alternative to the Washington Consensus, i.e., an anti-Washington Consensus view, for the developing countries based on three main pillars. Santiago Consensus. 1. The core idea is inclusion, which should not be only economic but social too. 2. This is a socio-economic development model and is bound to have its local characteristics. 3. Proposed by the World Bank, inspiring the world governments to focus more on the aspect of inclusive socio-economic growth. We see this happening in India also, with the government launching the third generation of economic reforms in 2002. National income. Total market value of goods and services produced in an country, in a year. The three important measures of calculating the national income of a country are: 1. The sum of the value of all final goods and services produced. 2. The sum of all incomes accruing to factors of production, i.e., rent, interest, profit, and wages. 3. The sum of consumers' expenditure, net investment, and government expenditure on goods and services. 1. Gross domestic product, GDP, is the value of all final goods and services produced within the boundary of a nation during 1 year period. It is also calculated by adding national private consumption, gross investment, government spending, and trade balance, exports minus imports. The use of the exports minus imports factor removes expenditures on imports not produced in the nation and adds expenditures of goods and services produced which are exported but not sold within the country. 2. Net domestic product, NDP, is the GDP calculated after adjusting the weight of the value of depreciation. This is, basically, the net form of the GDP, i.e., GDP minus the total value of the wear and tear, depreciation, that happened in the assets while the goods and services were being produced. Every asset goes for depreciation in the process of their uses, which means they wear and tear. The governments of the economies decide and announce the rates by which assets depreciate, and a list is published, which is used by different sections of the economy to determine the real levels of depreciation in different assets. NDP equals GDP minus depreciation. 3. Gross national product, GNP, is the GDP of a country added with its income from abroad. Here, the transboundary economic activities of an economy are also taken into account. The items which are counted in the segment, income from abroad, are private remittances, interest on external loans, external grants. 4. The net national product, NNP, of an economy is the GNP after deducting the loss due to depreciation. The formula to derive it may be written like NNP equals GNP minus depreciation. It can also be written as NNP equals GDP plus income from abroad minus depreciation. Cost and price of national income. 1. Cost. Income of an economy, i.e., the value of its total produced goods and services may be calculated at either the factor cost or the market cost. Factor cost is the input cost the producer has to incur in the process of producing something, such as cost of capital, i.e., interest on loans, raw materials, labor, rent, power, etc. This is also termed as factory price or production cost price. 2. Price. Income can be derived at two prices, constant and current. The difference in the constant and current prices is only that of the impact of inflation. Inflation is considered a standstill at a year of the past in the case of the constant price, while in the current price, present-day inflation is added. The current price is, basically, the maximum retail price, MRP, which we see printed on the goods selling in the market.